Hey guys, it's Dean. Those of you that have been around from the early days of this channel will know that I spent over a year going through a fairly in-depth retrospective of the Mario Party series. Those Mario Party videos were a major driving point into getting me my first 500 subscribers. I was still new to all of this. My editing was significantly worse, and I don't necessarily think I've gotten all that much better, but I owe much of my current abilities to the endless hours that went into getting the Mario Party series retrospective out. Funnily enough, it's still my most viewed series, and by a long shot. To this day, I have people commenting either for or against my varying opinions on those videos. At the time, I had chosen Mario Party series to be my first real project because A, it was a game series that I was very familiar with and dear to my heart, and B, it was a series that spanned across multiple consoles, so it would allow me a chance to really learn how to get my thoughts and practices in order to develop some kind of habit and rhythm in creating video retrospectives. And C, in my mind, it was somewhat of a low-risk project. Mario Party was kind of dead. Nobody really took it seriously. When I started the project, Super had promised a return to form, but missed the bar, and we were so far removed from a proper Mario Party game that I think anyone under the age of 20 at the time didn't view it as anything more than a mindless party game. Due to the reputation Mario Party had, I figured it would be my practice series. The one I could release crappy footage of and poor edits and bad jokes and all that other inexcusable nonsense that you could get away with when you have less than 100 subscribers. Mario Party was basically my used Honda Civic I bought to beat up while I learned how to drive. At the time, I think it was a fair point of view to have. Like I said, the series had little to no momentum after the false dawn that Super had given us. But I hated that it was the case. I used to consider Mario Party a juggernaut. In many ways, I held it in as high of an esteem as Mario Kart and Smash Bros. Obviously, the communities varied drastically, and the Nintendo fandom didn't quite see it as I did. But at least in the early years, I think the three were on equal grounds, or at least close to it. At some point, while I was going through the series, there was an announcement all of a sudden that Super Mario Party would suddenly support online multiplayer. This occurred like 2 years after the game was released and was extremely unexpected. I never actually tried the multiplayer in that game, but from my understanding the experience was average at best, yet still better than nothing. There were a few Discord groups that would develop and players would be able to hold folks accountable if they dropped out of games, and in those instances, I heard the online was actually acceptable, and maybe even a bit more fun than they'd expect. A couple of months after the online was implemented, I saw a comment on one of my videos, a night before a Nintendo Direct, that guessed that Super getting multiplayer was their test run to announce a new Mario Party game and that game would have online. And I was so excited when that guess ended up being right. Superstars, in a lot of ways, was the first Mario Party game in a long time that felt like a true Mario Party title. It actually became my go-to Mario Party game. All of the praise and love I had for Mario Party 2 and 7 basically went out of the window. I'll still occasionally host a session playing those games, but it was no longer worth it to go out of our way to play GameCube or Nintendo 64. Now when I say we, I primarily play these games with 3 other family members with the occasional swap for a friend or nephew. My brother and 2 cousins and I have been playing multiplayer games together for as long as I can remember. Prior to Superstars, we went through a craze of indie games that have been reviewed on my channel in a previous video. But post Superstars, I would say that 80% of our gatherings have been on that, with 15% going towards Mario Kart and 5% something else entirely. To put things into perspective, however, I was the only one of this group that actually owned a Switch. We only played if we could get together, and that was generally only once every week or two. Which is still a fair amount, but you'd get these pockets of time that would last a month or two where someone would be too busy, and if we couldn't get 4, we just weren't interested. And I know this is going to sound ridiculous, and probably is the most boomer statement I'll make on this channel, but I fall in line with the Nintendo executives and still believe that the joy of couch multiplayer games can't be replicated in an online setting. Now, while I do still believe that to some extent, I've also since then convinced everyone in said group to buy a Switch, got us all an online family plan, and made online game nights for us go from once every week or so to 2 or 3 times a week. We have played Mario Kart and Mario Party more in the past year than we've played any video games together at all in the past 5 years. Mario Kart has gotten so stale for us that we exclusively play 200cc now, and Mario Party had gotten so repetitive that we had to implement a no purchasing of golden pipes rule to completely change the way the game is played. Heck, we even started playing Woody Woods despite the fact that we all hate that board, just so we can have a different experience. We'd spend hours playing and talking about how much we wish a new Mario Party would come out just so we could freshen up the experience. So believe me when I tell you that when Jamboree was announced, We were more excited than hundreds of fake reaction videos created by fans whenever a new character was announced for Ultimate. Like, the sense of excitement I had for Jamboree is almost childlike at this point. Now obviously, I'm very passionate about this stuff, hence why I spend many hours a week working to upload these videos on my channel. But it's probably been over a decade since I've seen my family share that kind of excitement for a new game with me. And honestly, that's the reason I started making Let's Play videos. And it's the reason I created a separate channel called Nintendoweebs Play, because I didn't want those LP videos to deter all of you away from the content you're here for, which is my retrospectives. Now today's video is obviously not a retrospective video. It's more like a review or analysis. But whatever you want to call it, it'll be in line with the many other videos I've already uploaded on this channel. And this may be the recency bias, but Super Mario Party Jamboree is basically my new go-to Mario Party game. And I have a very big feeling it's going to be as popular, if not more popular than Superstars. I'll first start off with the minigames. There's a pretty good amount here. 110 are marketed, but as per usual they include the ones that aren't part of the main game as well. I really appreciated the fact that they give you an option to toggle motion control minigames on and off. Superstars definitely felt to me that it was lacking due to not having motion control minigames. But at the same time, I understand the complications for playing handheld or the varying types of controllers Switch owners might have, and how it could affect a game to require motion controls. So kudos to ND Cube for giving you the option to elect whether or not motion controls make sense in your specific gaming session. The minigames are about as good as you'd expect by this point. I'm a big fan of the package that they've put together. I love that I see a return of Platform Peril. That's like one of my favorites of all time. But they've added so many more that I think everyone can enjoy. And honestly, the fact that they've managed to almost completely balance the 1 vs 3 minigames is so impressive. Now I won't go out of my way to say they're completely balanced. There might still be 1 or 2 moments where a game will pop up and we'll all groan or cheer because we know ahead of time if we're gonna win it or not. But I think this game specifically has done the best job at balancing them out to the best of their ability. Now if you've watched my Mario Party series, you'll know that I don't generally go through all of the minigames in these videos. And I'm still not gonna do it here. But I will probably be doing a separate Let's Play highlight video where I'll casually go through all the minigames with the other Nintendoweebs, and maybe even develop some kind of strategy for each minigame. Keep an eye out on this channel. I'll either make an announcement or post a shorter video. Or, you know, if you're super inclined, you can make your way over to Nintendoweebs Play and subscribe and keep an eye out over there. Plus, there's likely going to be weeks, if not months, of Mario Party Jamboree Let's Play highlight videos in a similar fashion to how the Party Crashers do their videos. Regardless, the minigame package here is solid and has a good mixture of classics, new, boss battles, motion, and regular button controls to allow you to enjoy this game even if you just want to casually play through minigames instead of doing full board experiences. Oh, also, there's a setting where minigames can now be voted on too, which I think is an awesome option. In addition to the minigames, there are also some new and returning items for this iteration, as is expected of a new Mario Party title. You'll get the usual ones like skeleton keys, mushrooms, double and triple dice, creepy dice which are just rebranded cursed dices, custom dice, warp blocks, boo bells, item bags, golden pipes, chomp calls, dueling gloves, plunder chests, hidden block cards, and making a return from Mario Party 3, the Bowser phone and cellular shop. The new items include a super creepy dice, which basically curses all 3 opponents to a 1 through 3 roll, a pipe which just warps you to a random space on the board, shop hop box which warps you to a random shop, payday double dice which will give you coins equal to your roll, payday triple dice, same idea but 3 dice, and additionally we have traps which are effectively the return of hexes from Mario Party DS. You can throw them on the board and if an opponent lands on your trap, they'll have to give you a predetermined number of coins or even stars. There are also some items that are exclusive to each of their boards, which I'll go over when I do the board analysis. I'm fairly satisfied with the items we have here. It's a good mixture of different types of items, and the prices seem reasonable given the coin economy in this game. Things are affordable, and people will have a lot of coins. But I think Superstar showed us that you could still enjoy Mario Party despite everyone being rich, unlike in Super where anything having a price seemed pointless. Speaking of pointless, there's a ton of characters now. I kid, of course. I actually really do like the size of the roster. It's not quite the size of Super, but it's a major upgrade on Superstars. Notably, you have Paulina and Inji making their Mario Party debuts. I was joking when I said pointless, but in actuality the character you choose is strictly aesthetic. There aren't any special dice blocks or anything. Everyone is more or less on an equal playing field. However, there is a whole special gimmick with the allies now that somewhat fixes the unbalanced nature of the ally system in Super. Basically, the way it works here is a single Jamboree buddy will show up on the board and you'll have 3 turns to pass by them to get them to join you. When you reach the ally, everyone will go through minigames to win the buddy's allegiance, and the player that actually got to the buddy first will have a bit of an advantage in the minigames to give them somewhat of an edge. Each ally has a different special ability that generally involves helping you with coins, movement, or items. Additionally, whenever you have an ally, everything basically happens twice. You can buy 2 things at a shop, purchase 2 stars, and whatnot. But the opposite is true too. Bowser and red spaces will double the punishment, so you're in it together whether it's good or bad. And you'll hope it'll be for the good, because your buddy only sticks around for 3 turns, and if another player passes you on the board, they'll take that ally off of you. This creates a ton of chaos for those 3 turns. Basically, if 2 or more characters are all in the same area, it's entirely possible that all players can utilize the ally as long as the player rolling is behind the player that currently has the buddy's allegiance. It adds a very interesting dynamic to the game, and honestly, it's a mechanic that fits so well into the Mario Party formula that I can't help but give them major props for the implementation. This is a treat, and it's sure to lead to some ridiculous moments during the game. So in general, there are a lot of things I'm somewhat glossing over, and it's because they're to be expected at this point in the series. Blue spaces, red spaces, happening spaces, and whatnot. Minigame types are determined based off of what you land on. If you've played any Mario Party game, nothing should really surprise you all that much. They did change the HUDs so that everything is on the bottom of the screen instead of the 4 corners. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the only other game to not give each player a designated corner was Mario Party 8. It's not really that huge of a deal. The current setup allows you to keep track of which turn and event spaces and minigames are coming up, so there's plenty of use for it. But I definitely favor the corner setup that's more common in the series. It kinda makes me feel like I own a corner of the screen to myself, and I enjoy that. Like, this is my space. I know it sounds ridiculous, but the new HUD seems to be a bit less charming for me. Either way, it's not really a huge deal, and I won't dock any points for it since it doesn't really affect anything at all in the game. The minigames still come at the end of everyone's turn as per usual. There are still battle minigames that are implemented the same way they've always been. There are bonus minigames where the reward is twice as much, but instead of occurring every 5 turns, they now occur at random. There are still coin minigames that allow you to keep every coin collected during the game rather than compete to win the 10 coin reward. And the rewards are the same as a previous title where winning gets you 10 coins in a 4-player minigame, and second and third player get you 3 and 2 coins respectively. Like I said, it's all what you've come to expect from the formula by now. The last 5-turn event changed just a bit, although it's similar to some of the GameCube titles in that in addition to the doubling of the value of the red and blue spaces and having duels become possible by landing on the same spaces, the player gets a list of actions that they get to choose from. Most of the options available will either help 4th place, or help or hinder everyone on the board, like giving them all a trap item or adding Bowser spaces on the board. So basically, you can either help a single person in the game, or you can even the playing field with a reward or punishment for everyone. But before I get into the boards, I do want to make an honorable mention for all of the extra modes in this game. You have a single player mode and minigame bay and rhythm stuff that is worth a good time. And Koopathlon gives me early memories of Fall Guys. But once again, if you've seen my videos on this series, you'll already know that I like to spend more of my time focusing on the boards, because that's what most people spend most of their time doing in these games. And all the extra modes are just that. Extra. Either way, I'm not trying to downplay their inclusions, I just don't think I'm the best person to go through them and share my opinion on them, because I'm not all that passionate about going through all of that, and I'm not going to spend nearly enough time in those modes to share a concise opinion with you all. But anyway, let's get into the boards. Mega Wiggler's Tree Party is your typical introductory board and takes place in the woods. It has a few branching pathways to traverse, but generally you'll be moving in a straightforward direction, making it all around an ideal board for beginner Mario Party players since nothing too extravagant occurs during gameplay. The main gimmick of this board includes Mega Wiggler, who comfortably rests in the middle of the board. As Wiggler is asleep, you can traverse other spaces on its back. There are 4 event spaces that have bells above them, and if you land on the event spaces, a bell will ring and wake Wiggler up, causing it to move to the nearest leaf and forcing players to take an alternate route. There is, however, a board exclusive item which causes the Wiggler to move around the center without landing on the event space. As is typical with Wigglers, Mega Wiggler will eventually get angry, and an angry Wiggler will have red and Bowser spaces on its back, making it riskier to pass on top of. Beyond that, there are some generic event spaces that cause you to lose coins, and an event space where you can earn coins based on how much honey you can get out of a honeycomb. The more honey you get, the more coins Spike will give you. Basically, this is a very low-risk generic board, and it will most certainly be an easy one to return to, if you're looking for an easy board layout with minimal thoughts, or introducing some friends to the game. Next up, we have Rolm Raceway. This is a racetrack circuit. It's mostly linear, there are a lot of spaces, and you'll most certainly feel like a high roller as you roll high all around it. Dash mushrooms, double dice, triple dice, and even the board-exclusive quadruple dice will have you karting around in no time. There are 2 minor junctions that could be situationally beneficial depending on your rolls. and due to how high everyone's rolls are, expect many moments where a player is counting to see how they can best utilize these junctions to land on an optimal space. The quadruple dice, known as the turbo dice, is an item exclusive to this board, and allows you to roll 4 dice, which means you can get up to a whopping 40 spaces. But a major side effect of this item is that it skips major board events, not too dissimilar to the Mega Mushroom in Mario Party 4, which means you can completely skip the Boo, item shop, and even the star space. So it's a very high risk, high reward item. It's such a simple concept and board layout, but the minor junctions and the risk of the turbo dice add so much more to the strategy behind this board than you'd expect. Going through the board and passing by Koopa, effectively completing a lap, will grant you 10 coins, and some other Koopas will also provide turbo dice. There are even event spaces throughout that could affect your movement, helping you speed up or slow down as needed, which could potentially add more chaos to the uncertainty. It's still a really good board to introduce newcomers in, but it has just that little bit more oomph than Wiggler's stage to make it somewhat more advanced. And next up we have Goomba Lagoon, a large volcano board inhabited by Goombas on an island filled with wrecked ships. This board actually has a complex layout with tons of branching paths and junctions, allowing for freedom to explore and dynamic decision making. There are 2 main gimmicks on this board. The first one is the constant rising of the tides. Every so often the tides will rise and fall, blocking off certain parts of the board and opening up new ones. The tide can also be changed by collecting a seashell item, which is obviously this board's board exclusive item. This allows players to utilize the shell to either help your traversal, or screw other players out of getting to an area of the board they're trying to get to. Just think of the possibilities of angering your opponents. This is a great board to be toxic on. The second gimmick is the volcano. Whenever a player passes by a specific space, the volcano will erupt and explode and rain down golden Goombas around the stage, allowing players to collect coins as they pass over those spaces, similar to the Chump charity event in Mario Party 8. But there is an opposite effect. The volcano might explode and rain down lava bubbles that'll do the same thing as the golden Goombas. Players that land on those spaces will lose 3 coins. Aside from that, there are sporadic events throughout the board that mostly just allow you to earn more coins or traverse to a different area in typical Mario Party event-based fashion. Honestly, this board is probably up there now as a franchise favorite of mine. And considering Superstars had remade boards and Super had forgettable boards, that means this is the first time I really love an actual brand new board in a normal Mario Party game since Mario Party 7 released in 2005, almost 20 years ago. Actually, that might be a bit harsh on Mario Party 8, but I digress. Alright, let's head over to Rainbow Galleria. I'll obviously take the lazy route and draw parallels here with Coconut Mall from Mario Kart because that's the only other mall stage I can think of in the Mario series at the moment. Rainbow Galleria has a more complex layout, largely to do with all of the escalators and shops in various floors. Like, this isn't a generic or basic board at all, and I think that's for the best, but it could also get really confusing for newcomers. The main gimmick on this board is the flash sale. When a flash sale event occurs, everything, and I mean everything that you could purchase on this board goes on sale, including stars, which means during these special sales it turns into a wild goose chase to the stars and shops, and players start to climb over one another and beat each other up like it's Black Friday in 2009. Throughout the board there are stamps you can collect, 4 of them to be exact, blue, pink, yellow, and green. Depending on how many stamps you collect, you can actually cash them in for coins, potentially up to 50, which is a nice little side objective to take into consideration as you play through the board. There's even a lottery system similar to Mario Party 4. It's basically a simple game of chance to see if you can earn any additional coins. Like I said, this board is very open and dynamic, and part of that is due to the scattered shops. Items are all over the place and the shops are fairly unique. Players will certainly favor specific shops over others, and some players might even find that they'll stick to certain areas of the board because of a nearby shop has their favorite item that they'd like to purchase. I won't get too deep into the preferred tactic of this board because I'm not really sure what mine is yet, just because of how unique this board is. Overall, it's a very enjoyable board if you're up for that Mario Party mayhem, and I think how wild this board is might mean this board is best left to the experienced players because I can totally see advanced players taking advantage of newbies that don't know their way around the optimal routes in the mall. Next up, and wrapping up the new boards in this title, is King Bowser's Keep. Thankfully, a Bowser themed board, and it's actually pretty complex. This board is unlockable along with the next 2 boards, but those ones are remakes of classic boards akin to Superstars. As a quick side note, something I forgot to mention is the roster has certain characters that might show up on the board or as playable characters. Boo and Bowser, for example, can be chosen, but they also have spaces on the board. In Bowser's case, if you select Bowser, then the one that shows up as an NPC is known as Imposter Bowser. For Boo, it's less of an issue since there are multiple Boos. Either way, I think it's an easy way to please people who like choosing certain characters while also keeping them as staples on the boards to not change things up too much for people that entered the franchise with superstars. Anyway, the board has a ton of Bowser spaces, red spaces, and unlucky spaces. So it's all around very brutal. The main gimmick is Mega Bowser in the middle of the board. He basically has the starring role of the stage, which makes sense since this is his stage. In a similar vein to Bowser Time in Mario Party 7, every few turns he turns a couple of spaces into Bowser spaces, but also enhances them so that they're more punishing than usual. The longer the game goes on, the more punishing the area around him is, making the center of this board extremely dangerous to venture. The board also has conveyor belts that can change direction, which Mega Bowser has a hand in, and he'll grab players and punish them for daring to get too close to him. Additionally, the board exclusive item here allows you to switch the direction of the conveyor belt, so you might be able to screw over one of your opponents if you're feeling sinister yourself. There are scattered events throughout the boards that include some notable enemies like Charging Chucks and Mecha Koopas, which will give you a chance to get some coins or lose coins, as well as warp pipes scattered throughout that'll move you around the stage. Basically, it's a very chaotic, complex, and dangerous board, and quite frankly, it lives up to the legendary Bowser boards that were scattered throughout the Hudson Soft titles. Super punishing, but it's fun because you'll get to see your friends get punished too. The remaining boards are classic Nintendo 64 boards, the first of which being Mario's Rainbow Castle from Mario Party 1. This is actually one of my favorite boards in the franchise, and I've always loved the Stall and Blitz gimmick that we've seen a few times in the franchise. It's very simple and linear and includes two junctions, which as you know will either speed up or slow down your journey towards the tower, where either Toad awaits you with a star, or Bowser awaits you with a Czar. After you've either gotten a star or been punished, the tower will rotate and switch to Toad or Bowser respectively, and you'll be sent back to the start of the board. And of course, the event spaces are there to rotate said tower as well. Similar to Peach's birthday cake and Yoshi's Tropical Island in Superstars, you can actually use items on this Mario Party 1 board. Depending on whether Toad or Bowser are at the tower, the shop will either be hosted by Koopa or Kamek, and they'll each sell exclusive items, so this does add a bit of an X factor to the strategy that wasn't in the original game. But aside from that, it's virtually untouched from the original. It's still the same lovable board from the original Mario Party title. I'd also recommend this one for newbies to the franchise due to its simple nature, but I also think a very competitive group can have a ton of fun with this kind of board, and the addition of items actually makes it more competitive than it was in the original game. The final board is hands down my favorite board in the franchise, and I'm fully aware that it's largely due to nostalgia I have for Mario Party 2. I actually think Rainbow Castle and Western Land might have been planned DLC for Superstars, or maybe there were boards that were initially planned to be released with Superstars but they didn't make the cut for whatever reason. Either way, I'm glad to see this board included, and I hope that sometime in the near future, probably in a sequel because seemingly Mario Party doesn't do DLC, we see Pirate Land as well. Regardless, this board is a behemoth and is still the largest board on a per space basis. But due to its layout, there are plenty of ways to traverse the board, even if it seems like it's too big to see at all. Western Land is a complex, old western town with a large outer path and multiple junctions on the inside to help you traverse. Additionally, the board's main gimmick is the train that travels around the board and stops at one of 3 stations. When you pass by the train, you're given an option to pay to take a ride, which via a coin flip will determine if you advance forwards to the next station or move backwards to the previous one. Happening spaces across the board will also make Steamer move forward to the next station, and also at any point in time, if a player gets hit by the train, they'll be sent back to the beginning of the stage. And of course, there's the Hootenanny, which will transfer all players to your location in the top left corner of the board. Except in this game, it's triggered via a happening space, making it much less game-breaking. Other changes include the addition of item shops to make collecting items in this massive stage easier, which is welcome since in the original you can carry only one item at a time. Another change includes additional junctions throughout the center of the board, which allows traversal to be a lot simpler. And I think they removed a handful of spaces too, just to make sure nobody is as lost in this game as they were in the original. Thankfully though, there are still boos in this stage, so there's plenty of trolling and mayhem to be had. In conclusion, Western Land pays a lot of respect to the original version from Mario Party 2, but adds some much needed improvements to keep it fresh. It basically took one of my favorite boards from the 90s and made it appropriate for 2024, which I wholeheartedly appreciate. I just wish they'd bring back the costumes already, but whatever, I guess they don't want people to be happy. I want to quickly point out that while you have a lot of the same implementations from Superstars throughout the game, like the last 5 turn events, chance time, bonus stars, hidden dice blocks, and etc., something that I thought was really cool was the addition of pro rules. I think this could be a very interesting way to remove some of the luck involved in this game, and just put a bit more focus on skill. I wouldn't say it completely removes the luck element, and depending on how you enjoy your Mario Party games, it might actually make it less enjoyable. But for me, it's a much appreciated inclusion to the franchise given one of the general complaints I've been hearing for the past decade or so is how much people exclaim these games have become too easy. And while I do think that the way the games are now are extremely enjoyable personally, I think it could be a fun change of pace to jump around different rule sets when one of them starts to get a bit stale just to shake things up a bit. Honestly, in my circle, which I'll remind you, you can watch our videos over on my sister channel Nintendoweebs Play, we eventually implemented a house rule where nobody is allowed to purchase a golden pipe from the shops anymore, and it breathed new life into a lot of stages and changed the way we played the game. So I can definitely see the benefit in pro rules being implemented, similar to using the classic or modern bonus star system. But that about wraps things up. I think in the same manner that Superstars quickly became my go-to Mario Party experience, Jamboree is likely going to be the game that I play for the next few years. I imagine the other Nintendoweebs and myself will be playing this game almost weekly, because that's what we've been doing with Superstars for the past couple of years. Is it my favorite Mario Party title? Well, at the moment yes, but it's very hard to quantify that considering the game literally just came out. Is it the best Mario Party title? At the moment, probably. I mean, there are tons of arguments to be made for the GameCube games too, but unless those are all re-released and made readily available to play online, then I can't really make that much of an argument for them. As strongly as I felt that Mario Party 7 was probably the best game and Mario Party 2 was my favorite, the reality is I don't play those games anymore. Nobody else wants to play them, so who cares? All I know is that I love this franchise, and I am happier than you could possibly imagine that I'm sitting here in 2024 talking about a new game in the series with original boards and even discussing the possibility that it might be the best game in the franchise or even my new favorite one. It's October of 2024. In October of 2014, we were 2 years removed from Mario Party 9 and 5 months away from the release of Mario Party 10. Nobody was excited. Everyone rightfully thought Mario Party was dead, whereas now, all of the hype around Jamboree since the moment it was announced is uncanny. Like I said at the beginning of this video, when I started the series retrospective, I had initially chosen Mario Party because it was a safe choice. An easy franchise that just wasn't as popular as it used to be, so I could afford to sacrifice and have poor quality videos due to being a new YouTuber. Instead, I'm sitting here today releasing this video to you all, absolutely knowing that millions of Switch owners out there are going to be purchasing this game and perhaps playing it more than any other Switch game until the release of the next Nintendo console. And I can't begin to explain to you how happy it makes me to say that. I quite frankly can't believe it. Mario Party is back, and it's here to stay. As always, thanks for watching. Dean out.